Wow. Deb-a-Doo? Let me tell you about Deb-a-Doo, the nightmare from the HOA. Well, guys, this story is about this lady named Deb-a-Doo, aka Debbie. She's one of the most villainous characters who is relentless. She's given out fines left and right. Oh, you parked overnight? Here's $50 fine. Oh, you left your mailbox down? Here's $100 fine. Well, it's going to come to an end because OP is gathering everybody from the neighborhood to put an end to this once and for all. Moving into my neighborhood several months ago seemed like the fresh start I needed. I was eager to make friends with my neighbors and settle into the community. I'm a pretty easygoing guy. I'm in my 30s. I enjoy playing pickleball on the weekends. So when I met my next-door neighbor Tom, who also was into pickleball, we hit it off right away. About a month after I moved in, Tom and I got the idea to construct a mini version of a small pickleball court in our backyards so we could play together easier and more frequently. We carefully measured out the space, rented the equipment, and throughout a Saturday poured and leveled the concrete for a simple little court. Well, we were both pretty handy and did all the work ourselves, excited to have a shared space just to enjoy our favorite hobby. The very next day, as the concrete was still drying, our livestock took a turn for the worse. We received a visit from the president of the neighborhood HOA, an elderly woman named Debbie, who lived a few houses down. I'll never forget her shrill voice shouting at us that we're in serious trouble of violations. Violations of HOA regulations for building an unauthorized structure. Tom and I tried explaining it's just a small recreational space, not a permanent construction. But Debbie, or should I say Debbie-Doo, as she'd soon come to be known, would hear none of it. According to her, we should have submitted extensive paperwork, permits, and drawings to the HOA committee before even pouring concrete into the backyard. Deb-a-Doo insisted we immediately tear up the fresh concrete at our own expense or face the penalties. Well, neither Tom nor I took it kindly to her demands over our brand new pickleball court that we had worked on so hard. The three of us got into a heated shouting match that ended with Deb-a-Doo threatening to fine us and call the police. Sadly, that's exactly what Deb-a-Doo did. Within an hour, 2 police cruisers were in front of Tom's house to deal with our unpermitted construction. Well, when Tom and I tried explaining it's just a backyard concrete pad, the officers said that their hands are tied because of those blasted HOA bylaws. To our utter disbelief, we were both issued citations carrying hefty fines for violating the HOA rules, on top of fees for the police response. The injustice of it all, it pains me to even think about it, but sadly it was only the beginning of this nightmare of Deb-a-Doo would put us through. You see, Debbie was much more than just a nosy neighbor. As president of the HOA committee, she ruled our neighborhood with an iron fist, hence the nickname Deb-a-Doo. Yeah, well, it's, like the meddling canine Scooby-Doo, 'cause she always has her nose everywhere, Deb-a-Doo. Over the following weeks, Tom and I had to go through the painful, expensive process of tearing up the brand new concrete that we worked so diligently on. I begrudgingly paid my share of the fines and fees, which put a good old dent in my wallet. We were both feeling angry and defeated. It just didn't seem right that Deb-a-Doo could barge into our property and demand we removed a project she didn't personally approve of. But such was her power here. I tried my best to put the pickleball court incident behind me, but Deb-a-Doo wasn't done with me just yet. A couple of months later, to make my new house feel more like a home, I decided to paint the front door a nice, vibrant red color. Well, that was another violation of Deb-a-Doo's precious laws. The very next morning, I found an official notice taped to my front door informing me that my door's, quote, unauthorized color change goes against the HOA regulations. So I have a 7-day period to repaint it with a, quote, approved neutral tone, or once again face another fine. Can you believe it? I was fuming that this controlling neighbor could intervene over something as minuscule as the color of my door. Not wanting any more trouble, I repainted the door a boring beige, and waited for Deb-a-Doo to inspect it, or should I say sniff it. She came by a few days later and gave it her seal of approval, with a sinister nod. But I could tell by the smug, entitled look upon her face that she enjoyed lording her power over I. At that point, I had only been living in the neighborhood for 5 months maybe? but had already faced more ridiculous HOA headaches than I could have ever imagined. Something had to be done about Deb-a-Doo and her authoritarian reign over our home. But what? A couple weeks later, Deb-a-Doo stuck her nose where it doesn't belong, yet again. This time, her target was a pair of colorful garden gnomes. I added to my front yard flower bed for, a whimsy. I was at Big Lots. They were on sale. They look cool. I got 'em. I arrived home from work one afternoon to find an official notice taped to my gnome's red pointy hat, declaring them a lawn decoration violation. Not only did HOA ban lawn decor, it deemed tacky, but Deb-a-Doo even left another notice on it that went on an unhinged rant about how gnomes were ancient, ominous spirits used for black magic and witchcraft. Say what? I had to reread her crazy letter multiple times to absorb the lunacy. To my disbelief, I was ordered to remove the, quote, evil gnome spirits within 3 days, or you guessed it, money. I was at my absolute limit when Deb-a-Doo harassed me because of my property, so I decided right then and there that I would not pay a cent. And I'm not going to remove those gnomes, Deb-a-Doo, not without a fight. I was fully prepared for whatever extreme measures Deb-a-Doo planned to take next. A few days passed, and sure enough, I received an official notice straight from the HOA demanding I pay a fine of $250 for my lawn gnome violation. $250 for a couple of 10-inch tall garden statues. The letter also threatened to double the fine every 3 days I left the gnomes up. It was a blatant extortion. I set the letter down, put my angry head in my hands, and wondered how much more of Deb-a-Doo's nonsense I could even put up with. There had to be a way to rein in her power trips. That's when a thought struck me. The HOA bylaws. I figured there had to be something in those rules, limiting how much authority Deb-a-Doo could actually wield over us. So I decided to meticulously read through the thick stack of documents I was given when I moved in, and I'd be darned if I did not find a glimmer of hope inside. You see, according to the bylaws, members of the HOA committee were required to be elected annually. There was even a detailed process for nominations and voting, but oddly, I could not recall any mention of an election since I've moved in. Deb-a-Doo was simply in charge of her 2 cronies, no questions asked. So I decided to ask Tom about it the next time I saw him. He laughed cynically and said that there had not been any kind of election or democratic process ever. Deb-a-Doo had made herself HOA queen based on seniority. Others were too scared of her just to oppose, and he agreed it was high time we banded together and challenged her unilateral rule. Tom and I decided to discreetly start asking around to other neighbors that we knew, who also had beef with Deb-a-Doo. It turned out nearly every neighbor had a story of being unfairly fined or harassed by her petty tyranny. We realized we were not alone in this, and that, there's numbers behind us. Soon enough, we gathered a group of 9 concerned homeowners, all allies in our mission to loosen Deb-a-Doo's iron grip. We took our discussions online. We created this secret Facebook group. We called it Take Back Maple Hills from Deb-a-Doo. It felt good to have a team united behind a common goal, the liberation of our neighborhood from her dictatorship of HOAs. It took a few days of planning, and we finally agreed on a course of action we could confront Deb-a-Doo at the next HOA board meeting and demand a democratic election be held by the bylaws. She surely could not ignore the will of 9 united homeowners. This was our chance to stand up to the petty tyrant who had made us pay these fines, tear up our backyards, and repaint doors. And ruin my pickleball time? Yeah, it's time for a revolution. The night of the meeting finally arrived, and as the 7 p.m. start time approached, our group of 9, plus about 20 other curious neighbors, filled into the community room at the clubhouse. The energy was electric. Deb-a-Doo sat at the front table with her 2 cronies, visibly unsettled by the unusually large turnout. Once the meeting began, I stood up first and made a motion to invoke the HOA bylaw requiring annual elections. My remarks were met by loud cheers and applause from the fired-up attendees. Tom seconded my motion empathetically. As the reality of the situation dawned on her, Deb-a-Doo's wrinkled face morphed into a scowl. She banged her gavel and proceeded to filibuster for 20 straight minutes, arguing the election was unnecessary because nobody had ever opposed her authority during her 13-year reign as president. We interrupted her rambling monologue with, "Vote them out! Let us elect someone new!" Finally, teary-eyed and shaken, Deb-a-Doo. She relented. Rattled by the rowdy uprising against her, she agreed to hold elections within 30 days. Wow, victory. Our ragtag group of revolutionaries had won this battle. Afterward, we congratulated one another over some beers, excited about the possibility of electing an HOA board that truly represents our interests. However, optimism is always short-lived. The very next morning, I woke up to find 6 violations. The notices stuffed in my mailbox, most I've ever had at one time. I bolted outside to find all my co-conspirators received similar fines handed down by suddenly very active HOA committees. My heart sank as I read through the fabricated violations against me. Dead grass spots, improperly stored trash cans, and excessive decor in my front porch. Each carries a $100 fine if not remedied within a week. But it was clear these baseless citations were directed for us. It's retaliation for the uprising against Deb-a-Doo. My neighbors were equally incensed, and as we stood comparing our bogus violation notices, an elderly man who lived across the street informed us Deb-a-Doo had slipped a thick document under his door too, an updated version of the HOA bylaws. We demanded to see it, and our blood pressure rose as we scanned through the documents. Deb-a-Doo completely rewrote the bylaws to give herself and the committee sole veto power over any changes. She has also conveniently eliminated the articles about elections and term limits. This updated version claimed authority to levy fines over 3 times larger than before. That conniving tyrant had been hard at work, indeed. It was painfully obvious now that Deb-a-Doo had no intention of relinquishing her position. She was determined to use every trick at her disposal to cling to her power. As if her underhanded tactics weren't enough, Deb-a-Doo, her updated bylaws declared all outstanding fines were to be paid in full within 7 days, or homeowners would incur heavy late penalties. My friends, I've reached my breaking point. Something has to be done about this tyrant and her abusive, fraudulent reign over the Maple Hills neighborhood. More drastic measures would be needed to bring about change, with legal implications. The fight had only just begun, but for now I'll leave it there. To be continued. What's up, everybody? I hope you're having a great day. Oh man, if you think that Deb-a-Doo is done, you have mistaken. This next update is absolutely insane. If you guys have not subscribed to the channel and you want daily revenge stories, take a second, hit that subscribe button, guys, and let's jump into the next update. Update number 1. When I last left off, Deb-a-Doo had issued a barrage of retaliatory bogus fines against myself and other neighbors who stepped up to her resume. We were just outraged at her underhanded tactics. It was the last straw. We decided as a group to file an official complaint and request a police investigation into Deb-a-Doo's abuse of authority. Strength in numbers, right? Well, the 2 officers who arrived to take our statement weren't exactly sympathetic. They made it quite crystal clear it was a civil matter, not involving any criminal actions on Deb-a-Doo's part, no matter how unhanded they seemed. One officer even condescendingly asked, "Let me get this straight. This is all over a little lady in charge of your HOA." His tone suggested we were wasting police resources on something so trivial. Well, Deb-a-Doo, she boldly strode up to the officers and launched into a sob story about how she was just trying to, quote, preserve our community traditions against a small band of rule-breaking rabble-rousers. She even had the audacity to let out an exaggerated sob and, crocodile tears. The officers, they ate it up. They advised if we had a problem with Deb-a-Doo's leadership styles, then you know what, we should take her to civil court. Then the old bat mocked us by growling, "Roar," like Scooby-Doo, and cackling as she headed back inside. Just unbelievable, Deb-a-Doo. Clearly, no help was coming from the law enforcement, and if we wanted justice, we had to seek it through the legal system. After much discussion, we decided to pool our funds together to hire a real estate attorney familiar with HOAs. Well, at our first meeting with the lawyer, she reviewed the HOA bylaw fines and Deb-a-Doo's revised bylaw document. We were shocked when she immediately starts to laugh out loud and says, "Is this for real? This woman has no clue what she's doing legally." Apparently, Deb-a-Doo's clumsy attempts to consolidate power were not just unethical, but blatantly illegal. For instance, she failed to hold required meetings or give proper notice before revising bylaws. This was music to our ears. Well, finally, the attorney helped us file petitions with the court to examine Deb-a-Doo, and the court approved our request. And soon, we obtained a stack of documents revealing Deb-a-Doo's underhanded dealings over the past decade. Our lawyer believed we had an excellent shot at overturning her fines, but removing Deb-a-Doo from power for good, and we began preparing for trial. Final update. Our day in court finally arrived, and Deb-a-Doo sat defiantly with her lawyer while our attorney presented a mountain of evidence against her. The judge listened closely as we described her harassment, and the HOA documents even revealed over 200 cases of Deb-a-Doo levying outrageous fines for minor infractions, or sometimes not at all. She was also embezzling money by awarding HOA contracts to her family members. Her abuse of power was shocking. The judge even ruled, declaring all of Deb-a-Doo's fines null and void, ordered her to pay back the money she stole with interest, and ruled that she be permanently barred from any HOA position because her reign of terror is officially over. For her outrageous conduct, Deb-a-Doo was even sentenced. 18 months in jail? As the bailiff escorted her away, she growled, "Ruh-roh," at us one last time, but there was no Scooby snack that could save her now. Well, with Deb-a-Doo gone, our neighborhood could finally heal. Of course, Deb-a-Doo could not let her defeat go. From her jail cell, she sent us all angry letters vowing some sort of revenge when she gets out. You know what I did? I simply mailed back a photo of my bright red door and a lawn full of cheerful garden gnomes. You know, when I'm reading these HOA stories, it always just blows my mind how far people are willing to go, and I don't even think it's truly to better the community or to even collect money, financial status. I think it's just because these HOA leaders that we hear about in these stories, they love the power. They love to be able to tell somebody, oh no, that door can't be red. Oh no, that lawn gnome can't go there. It is, well, against my beliefs. You need to take it out of your yard. They just love to do that sort of thing. And, you know, sometimes they lose control and end up going to jail or prison. In this case, Deb-a-Doo. She found herself in a very tough pickle in the court of law. I want to know what you guys would have done in this situation. Maybe you would have handled it differently from OP. I do think, though, OP handled it pretty well. Guys, let's talk about it down below. Thank you for joining me on today's video. My name's mr.reddito, and if you have your own Deb-a-Doo story, I would love to hear it down below. Have a great day, guys. I'll see you tomorrow, and of course, remember, it's cool to be kind. Peace.